President William Ruto has sent a dangerous warning to Uhuru Kenyatta after asking Mlima Kenya voters to avoid Ruto like a bad spirit. Welcome to Kenyans Media, where we bring you news updates as they break. Kindly, if you're new here, consider subscribing. Now, a political contest is taking shape in Kenya's Mount Kenya region. President William Ruto has launched a renewed push for support even as the opposition voices grow louder. President William Ruto has begun an aggressive political campaign in the vote-rich Mount Kenya region, declaring that his performance in office will secure him a second term, even as the former President Uhuru Kenyatta and the former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua rally voters against his re-election. The political landscape in Kenya is entering a critical phase, with the Mount Kenya region once again emerging as a decisive battleground. President William Ruto has taken his campaign to Nyeri County, signaling a determined effort to consolidate support in a region that played a central role in his victory during the 2022 general election. The visit comes just a day after the former President Uhuru Kenyatta addressed residents, urging them not to support Ruto's bid for the second term. That appeal appears to have aligned with the sentiments expressed by the former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, suggesting a growing political front against the current administration within the region. Here is a tip.
Na no ndamwirire no ni horo wanyu gutikire na thina makoragwo na uke wa rurimi ati ona muiretu waku akihinga ndo turaga wigiririe hau ati uyu wetereire akagurwo ni mwana muthomu kana atia ukamuneanira hau ni undu wa ruri neguo utoe wa muneana.
In this clip, where Uhuru spoke in Kikuyu language, he said that he had warned Kikuyus against electing leaders with sweet tongues. He therefore urged church leaders not to mislead Kenyans as before, preach the gospel and leave politics with the leaders. Kenyans want leadership, not politics, and he further asked the Kenyans to remain united, and he said that he is encouraged by the growing awareness among citizens and therefore advised them to take the money politicians give but not selling their vote. In Nyeri, President Ruto struck a defiant tone. He dismissed attempts to influence the political direction of the region and reaffirmed his connection with the electorate, emphasizing that his presidency was a direct result of their support. The president's message centered on resilience and confidence, projecting himself as a leader ready to face political challenges head-on while maintaining focus on development. And during his visit, President Ruto attended the African Independent Pentecostal Church of Africa AIPCA Holy Oil Consecration Ceremony at the Mukaro South Diocese in Othaya constituency. The religious gathering provided a platform not only for spiritual engagement but also for the political messaging, as the president outlined his administration's priorities and defended his record in office. At the core of his campaign message is a focus on the key sectors, particularly agriculture and healthcare. And here is a tip.
Kwani mnafikiri ati kuna mtu atanitisha? Ati akuja atengeneze propaganda hapa azunguke ati William Ruto. Mimi niko na uhusiano na watu wa Nyeri na haikuanza jana. Mimi nimekuwa hapa bwana. Kwanza hakuna kiongozi wa Kenya hii ambaye ametembea hii Nyeri kuliko mimi. Wale wote ambao wanajifanya ati wanataka kushindana na mimi, hakuna hata mmoja. Hawajui kanisa iko wapi.
The president pointed to what he described as reforms in the coffee sector, noting improved prices as an indication of progress. And according to his remarks, the removal of exploitative middlemen has contributed to better returns for farmers, critical issue in a region heavily dependent on cash crops. He framed these developments as evidence of a working government positioning himself as a leader focused on delivering tangible results rather than engaging in political theatrics. The president also made it clear that he is prepared for the competitive electoral process, describing the upcoming contest as a test of leadership grounded in performance. His remarks suggest a strategy that leans heavily on the development-based politics, contrasting his approach with that of the characterized as divisive or disruptive political tactics. In Nyeri, the president's campaign perceived or rather received visible backing from the section of local leaders. Nyeri Governor Mutahi Kahiga publicly defended his support for the president, framing it as a commitment to continuity in development efforts, and the governor raised concerns about political actions that could disrupt government programs, questioning the logic of opposing an administration that is actively implementing projects. And this endorsement reflects a broader pattern of the political alignment among some leaders in the region who appear to be prioritizing development agendas over shifting political alliances. Nyeri Senator Wahome Wamatinga echoed similar sentiments, calling for a style of politics focused on development rather than confrontation. The emphasis on issue-based politics highlights a narrative being advanced by the president's allies, one that seeks to reframe the political debate around service delivery and economic progress. Udhaya Member of Parliament Wambugu Wainaina also weighed in, reinforcing the call for continuity and urging residents to support ongoing development initiatives. These statements collectively point to an emerging campaign theme that is centered on stability and progress, with leaders urging voters to evaluate the government based on its performance. At the same time, political activity linked to the presidency extended beyond Nyeri. The Deputy President Professor Kithure Kindiki engaged with residents in Kirinyaga County, where he delivered a strong message aimed at critics of the administration. The Deputy President's remarks indicated a readiness to confront political opponents directly, signaling that the administration is prepared for the intense electoral contest. He emphasized respect for differing political views, but also drew clear lines regarding what he described as attempts to undermine elected leaders. The Deputy President referred and referenced the previous electoral outcomes, including by-election, as evidence of the administration's political strength. His comments suggest a dual strategy of defending the government record while also challenging the credibility and influence of opposition figures. The political exchanges highlight growing tensions with within the Mount Kenya region, which has historically been a key voting bloc in the national elections. And during the 2022 general election, President Ruto secured a significant portion of his support from the region. And out of approximately 7.1 million votes he received nationwide, nearly half came from the Mount Kenya region. The region's 10 counties collectively contributed more than 2.9 million votes, underscoring its importance in determining electoral outcomes. As the country moves closer to the next general election, the significance of the Mount Kenya is expected to increase even further, and recent projections by the Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission indicates that over 1.2 million new voters could be added to the register through ongoing voter listing. This anticipated increase in the number of voters adds another layer of complexity to the political dynamics in the region. Both the president and his opponents are likely to intensify their efforts to appeal to these new voters whose preferences could influence the final outcome. Meanwhile, the involvement of former President Uhuru Kenyatta in the political discourse marks a notable development, and as a retired head of state, his public appeal to voters carries a symbolic weight, particularly in the region where he has historically enjoyed strong support. His call for the voters to consider their choice reflects ongoing political realignments and suggests that the contest for the Mount Kenya is far from settled. Similarly, the role of former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua adds another dimension to the unfolding political scenario, and having previously served alongside the President Ruto, his current position indicates a shift in the alliances that could reshape the region's political landscape. Together, these developments point to a highly competitive environment with multiple actors seeking to influence voter sentiment ahead of the next general election. The focus of the Mount Kenya also reflects broader national trends, where regional voting blocs continue to play a critical role in shaping political strategies. And for President Ruto, maintaining support in this region is not only a matter of political advantage but also strategic necessity. And for his opponents, weakening that support base could significantly alter the balance of power. And as campaigns gather momentum, the emphasis on development, leadership, and political alignment is expected to define the discourse. Voters in the region will be faced with contrasting messages, each seeking to present a vision for the country's future. The outcome will likely depend on how effectively each side communicates its agenda and connects with the concerns of the electorate. For now, the early signs point to a tightly contested race, with the Mount Kenya once again in the center of the Kenya's political conversation. And as the battle for the Mount Kenya intensifies, the region's voice may once again shape the direction of the nation. That is all from Kenyans Media as of now. Let's meet once again in the next video. And if you are new here, consider subscribing, liking, and sharing our videos.